comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we all need love in the ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we all need love in the ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we all need love in a ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down.
Everyone, welcome back to a Smart Capital Network exclusive. I'm your host, Youssef, and today we're joined by Dr. Stevens. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. This is an individual that I've grown to admire. I met a few months ago at the Twin Cities Startup Week. Mm-hmm. At that point, you initially, you recently moved to the Twin Cities, and I was blown away by your ability to connect, and also your background and things that you've accomplished in such a short time, right? And today we have the privilege and honor to have you on because you're doing some amazing thing, and I think it needs to be highlighted. So without any further ado, I think we should start with introductions, and then we can dive in from there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm also excited about the conversations that we're going to have. My name is Stevens. I'm the founder and CEO of Feedcoyote, which is the global collaboration layer for the freelance economy. So we want to help freelancers connect, collaborate, and have more earning opportunities. And this is something that we've been building for the last few years. And right now we've seen a lot of great traction, and I'm very excited to really get into it.
All right, so what made you realize that this was a challenge needed to be solved? And when did it become real as far as the execution of it?
Yeah, I've always been a freelancer. It's something that I did throughout college to support myself and family. I'm also originally from the Caribbean, Haiti specifically, and freelancing is basically a way of life there. And when I moved to the States, I realized that other freelancers were also facing the same issues that I had, which is usually having to work in isolation and experience economic isolation as well. So this is something that I wanted to help with, and then I decided to launch a platform to see how I can contribute.
Okay, and was this your first time actually going through that process, or tell me a little bit more, what was your experience before that?
This is actually my second startup. I built a first startup during the pandemic. Great idea, bad timing. But I learned a lot from that, and I also took that experience and I decided to launch another startup to build something to help with the digital economy. So this is something that we've been building on since, and it's been very challenging building a startup that is servicing so many people from so many countries, but also it's been a great learning opportunities for us as well to know how we can build that scale.
Okay, you said something I really appreciate, and actually I learned much of this from one of my mentors, Gary Jinks, who's he places much emphasis on timing, and that being some of the leading reasons as to why businesses may fail outside of obviously the capital and things necessary. So what made you finally believe that this was the right time?
Yeah. Before I launched the company, I took my experience as a freelancer, and I also talked to other freelancers at the time. Some of them were my friends and other people that were also working in the field. I interviewed them, I asked questions because I wanted to know if the problem that I was experiencing was a big thing. And then I quickly realized that there were so many freelancers that were experiencing the same issue. And that's when I realized also by doing some market research that it's much a bigger problem because of how the freelance economy is booming. Right now we have around 1.5 billion freelancers worldwide, and it's expected to grow more over the next few years. And you realize there is this massive pool of talent that still has lack of access to opportunities and using so many tools to build their freelance business, which is not very efficient for them. And that's when I realized that we were sitting on such a big opportunity to help this industry.
You know, there's a saying, especially in the fitness world, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Exactly.
So how prepared did you feel when you identified there was a challenge? And you've started a venture before and it didn't work out as you planned. One, usually confidence is shattered after that.
Yeah.
Where did you muster up the confidence and the preparation for you to mentally, we see that with founders, especially those from underserved communities, that imposter syndrome is something that keeps many back from actually executing on any idea, right? But you had that confidence. Where did it come from? Why did you believe so strongly? And what advice would you give to founders who are struggling with that imposter syndrome, even though they have brilliant ideas?
Well, I'd say do it. Do it anyways, because you're either going to learn or you're going to succeed. So I think something that really holds people back is the fact that they have ideas but they don't want to start. It's extremely hard, it's extremely challenging, but I believe that if you have a passion and you want to pursue something, you will find a way, basically. So I was not prepared. I just wanted to do something. I wanted to help, and I knew that if I really gave my very best, I will try to find a way. And I'm happy that we're able to figure it out, and we're still figuring it out. And I'm hoping that we will take the learnings and everything and we'll get the company to the next level as we continue to scale.
Dr. Stevens, I keep saying Dr. Stevens, I'm not crazy. And I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to know, right? When I ask for preparation, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
You put in work. You're a PhD. And you're someone who have actually gone above and beyond. You came here as an immigrant from, a
Haiti.
place from Haiti, a place with much lack. As many of the countries in the global south, I am from Liberia, came from Ghana, refugee camp, all of that. So, I can empathize with some of those things. And I bring this up because your accolades is inspiring. Tell us more. What I know we're kind of moving a little bit backwards, but I want to make sure we address this before moving any further. The accomplishments, even in that regard, what is the motivation, man? I mean, you've done so much, and like I just said, and you shared with us, you started and you've continued. That's a sign of consistency, persistence, someone who's determined, right? Where does that come from?
I mean, I guess from Haiti, really, because back home, education is basically the only way out. So I was instilled at a very young age, and I wanted to always do my very best, give my very best. And when I moved to the States, and I realized there were so many opportunities here, and it all depended on me to do my very best. So I took advantage of that, and I started in Florida, attended Miami-Dade College, and then moved up to Alabama, got a bachelor's there in economics at Tuskegee University, and after that, Western Michigan University, where I received my master's in applied economics, and California Intercontinental University, where I got a doctorate in business administration, and all this because I wanted to prepare myself to be in a position where whenever there's an opportunity, I'll be ready to take advantage of that. And economics and business is something that I've always been interested in because I've always wanted to become an entrepreneur and build something, help other people, and I'm happy that kind of worked out for me somehow.
For sure. Now let's switch focus a little bit into capital formation. Capital raising, you've done quite well. About $10 million
Oh my
worth.
gosh. We're
I
trying.
won't let that. He's too humble. He may not share that figure, but he's given permission, so I thought I'd drop that. But that's a major feat, 8 figures. We're looking at venture capital, private sector, where approximately maybe 0.5% of all entrepreneurs access venture capital, and I think that's about, I don't know, two out of 1,000 or 2,000 or something like that. My math is not that great, but it's a small sum of people, right? And here you are navigating it with such poise. When did you get to the realization that we need to raise money? What was the sacrifice that went into this project before even raising money? You know what? And then we could move on from there.
Yeah, this is an idea that I've always believed in, and I believed so much in it that I wanted to even invest my own money. In the early days, I blew up my 401k, I took my savings, and I invested everything into launching the first part of the product because I wanted to get it out there and see if people were interested in it and all that. I was lucky enough that at that time I was working at Microsoft, which helped me kind of develop my love for tech and also give me the network that I needed to kind of understand how to build products and all that. So, but I realized very quickly that I was going to run out of money because it takes so much more to build a tech company. And that's when I started looking for external capital, either from pitch competitions or accelerators or VC funding. And then that in itself is a whole process, you know. So we were able to be successful to raise some capital to help with the product, because what we're building, it's such an important issue that we're addressing right now, that we need extensive capital so that we can build the product the way that we want to, but also to be able to reach so many people around the world wherever they are. So we need extensive resources for that.
Right, and so let's highlight a little bit more of your sacrifice. You had a career before.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to highlight, and part of why is skin in the game. Mm-hmm. I've spoke with thousands of investors in my life. We have a robust network here, Smart Capital Network, that we've been building over the years, and I know that it's important that you have skin in the game, that you've shown effort and belief in whatever you're building. So give us a little bit more details on that for our potential future investors listening.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so much in the idea that I was willing to even lose my own money just to try.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the freelance economy is changing. There's a shift right now in independent work that's very structural. Over 60 million Americans perform freelance work, and it's increasing every year as well. So there is a massive opportunity here to be at that intersection, to build a company that's servicing that category. And early on I realized that, but I also realized it was going to be extremely difficult. We needed a lot of capital to be able to build that, but I was the first investor of the company. I put in my money, I had skin in the game, and we got the first version out. And from there, we started now to look into external capital, where luckily I won a first competition way back, which came in with $50,000 at a time, which also helped us get to the next level. That was very important because it was the very first kind of sign of trust from other investors that also believed in the idea. So that also reinforced our conviction when we wanted to do that. And from there, we were fortunate to get into Techstars, which is one of the top accelerators in the world, and they've also invested money into the company, and that also helped us build our network. And we got other VCs that joined on the journey as well. But we are still raising, we are still looking for more opportunities and more resources, because what we are building is going to require so much resources that we have to keep building, and we have to keep finding more help and more partnerships.
What was run me through the emotions when you got your first VC or your first investments, and when you got your first client?
Yeah, it was a great experience for both cases. First, client was, people believe that this product can help them solve their problem.
Yeah.
And they can use it, and they were willing to pay to use it. So that was an amazing feeling. I remember the very first time that Stripe sent us that notification that we got that first payment on the platform. I was so excited. I was like, whoa, somebody's willing to pay for this thing. So it was an amazing feeling. But also getting that first check as well was amazing, because we saw that somebody's willing to put their money into the company, knowing that they might lose it, because building a startup, it takes so much. And you're not guaranteed that you're going to succeed, but even though you're trying, you're doing your very best. So somebody was willing to lose their money just so that we can try. So that was another conviction that we had there, and it was another amazing feeling as well to know that other people now are buying into your idea, and that gave us the motivation that we needed to continue.
Who are these people?
Yes, at a time we did a competition which was called First 50K.
Okay.
It was a competition where they were inviting companies from across the world and across the country to go to Missouri and Kentucky to pitch your idea. And then I was lucky enough that I was selected among those 5 companies that were selected at a time.
Okay.
And we were one of those companies that received that investment, and it was amazing. And to see that these people were willing to put their money into the company and help us take the company to the next level.
Yeah, so tell me about your first pitch.
Oh
You're
my
pitching
gosh.
these angels,
It was scary because here I am pitching and trying to convince people to invest their money.
Yeah.
I believed in the idea, but being able to convince somebody else to put money into it is it's extremely hard. But I got up there and I shared what I was building. I shared about why I thought it was gonna work, and I was lucky enough that these people, they also believe that this is an industry that's booming, and they also wanted to help with that as well.
And so, as you're pitching them, obviously you're sweating bullets.
It was wild.
And as we know, as you're pitching, the iterations start to
Yeah.
become, as especially it manifests itself throughout the company.
Yeah.
Everyone has their different insights and things that you could do here or there or what not to do, and the process actually organically comes together the more you're paying attention. So. How many no's from that, right? How many no's did you get before you got your first yes?
I can't even count anymore at this point. It was a lot, like whether from applications online that I've never heard back from, or people that told me no, or people that literally ghosted me. It was like a mixture of everything. But that first yes eventually kind of made me sort of forget about the other no's that I had, because then I started to have that new realization that at least there were some people out there somehow that believed in this, although I had a lot of no's. And we still get more no's right now, because I also realized that not every investor would understand your industry, and that's okay, because you have different kind of investors that invest in different type of industries. So this is something that I also had to learn, that just because you got a no, that doesn't mean that the idea is not good, or it's not doesn't mean it's gonna fail. It's just maybe it's not for your vision. That no doesn't align with your vision. Then you have to find the kind of investor that would believe in what you're building and that would be aligned with the vision and the mission of the company.
Now let's revert back to this amazing figure, this 10 million raised. So first and foremost, what stage are you currently at?
We're currently in a seed round right now. We are targeting that valuation, and also we are raising to get to the next level. And our goal right now is to grow as fast as we can, so that we can service as many freelancers as possible. And of course, we will raise a lot of money along the way, because we believe this idea can become so much more, and we are ready for all the help and partnerships that we can get.
Okay, so you're at the seed stage. Tell us a little bit what changed between your raises. First, how many raises have you undergone, and what was the sort of some of the approach or the psychology from the earlier raises versus this current one?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, we wanted to test the idea to see if there is something there. So we needed a little bit of money to get the product to market. So we were at a pre-seed at that time.
Yeah.
So we raised that, and then we got some conviction. We built the product. We've had some early traction. People were, coming in and signing up and paying for the product. And then we realized then, okay, we are onto something. Now we have to build structures and processes in place. So now we are raising that seed round so that we can build those things and then take the company to the next level. Right now we are closing on nearly 200,000 users on the app across 130 countries. I'm very excited about the response that we've seen from freelancers around the world, but we believe that we can get more than that, millions and millions of freelancers, but because we are building the infrastructure for the global collaboration of the freelance economy, so we need to be able to invest a lot in our technology that we're building.
What would you say are some of the common misunderstandings amongst founders seeking capital?
It's understanding the stage that you're at, and also raising the capital because you have a vision of how you're going to use it, not just raise it just for the sake of raising it and say, okay, we've raised that many millions. It's nice, but at the end of the day, it's your customers, really. You can raise millions of dollars and still fail,
Yeah.
So you don't want to be in that position. You want to raise the money because you believe that money will help you get to the next level. You believe the idea is strong enough, and then you just need to build the tech and the processes and structures that you need. I'd say really focus on the fact that if you raise that money, you will be able to reach your customers, and they have that willingness to pay to help you take the company to the next level.
So now after you've received that money, how do you go about the allocation? Some of the challenges, especially for entrepreneurs who are in emerging markets, trust is some of the greater factors that causes them to not receive that money, right? That angel or that VC capital. And I think some of those things have to do with how de-risked the venture is, and part of de-risking could be a number of things, from how you hire, and especially how you're spending the money. So allocation is something that is important. How does a founder go about communicating effectively to their stakeholders, showing that the allocation is actually going in the place said?
Yeah. I believe it depends on the stage of the company. Obviously, in the early days, you want to invest more in the product because you're trying to get the tech out there. But in some cases, you might want to invest more in people to help you build processes and structures, or marketing to just get more customers onto the platform. So in our stage right now, we want to be able to focus on marketing primarily because our tech is very solid, and then we're also continuously improving that. So now we want to be able to onboard massive amount of freelancers on the platform. So right now, most of our allocation goes towards that segment. So this is what we communicate to our investors and stakeholders, and so that they can understand that money that we're investing, this is the return that we're looking at, and this is the time frame as well, so that we can get to the next stage as a Series A and so forth. So because of that, we need to invest extensively in this specific segment.
As far as structuring goes, we have the safes and other sort of structures that could be intact to entice investors. Without going into anything that is proprietary, what were some of the things that you found investors were most enthused over, as far as the early structuring and their skin in the game, and taking the initial risk?
Yeah, there are different instruments that founders and investors nowadays use to close a deal. It depends also on the stage as well. We have the safe that's very easy to use nowadays because you're trying to get the money in so that you can use that to build and to scale. But as you continue to grow, you will get to a certain stage where you need to be able to have more of a deeper type of instrument to use. So in our case, we were primarily focusing on a safe to raise until that stage.
And how do you look at dilution, versus control as a founder?
Personally, I want to build with everybody, so I'm not trying to hold on to 100% of that, because 100% of zero is zero. So if I can succeed with 1%, I'm okay to help 99% of other people help me with that. So as long as we understand the vision and we have the same goal in mind, so I'm always happy to find new partners to help us with that. And I also understand, as they come in, as they have skin in the game as well, we have to share with them. So this is something that we are always ready to do. But also we want to make sure that we find the right partners along the way as well, because not finding the right partners, that can also be detrimental to the company. So we want to make sure that we onboard the right investors as we continue to scale.
All right, perfect. So as you said, right partners. So that tells us that there could be a wrong partner.
Yeah.
And so have you ever received VC money that you then regretted, or perhaps you just turned down flat out because you just knew this was not the right partner or person to be involved in the building of this project?
Personally, at this stage, no, and hopefully not, because it is something that's very difficult to deal with. So far, we've been very lucky to have the right partners along the way. So I'm hoping moving forward, we'll still find the right investors. But I know other founders that unfortunately had to deal with that, and that can create such a mess for the company.
Yeah. Please share with us. Overcoming objection as far as just the mentality to continue. Often the iteration process comes with a lot of no's, right? But we just need that one yes.
That one yes.
And then more trickles in from there. But to get to that one, it could almost be like you're gonna lose yourself. For those who are married, for those who may have children, I mean, it takes so much from you. So how do you mentally overcome all of these obstacles?
It's crazy. In the early days, I used to take that very personally, as I suppose a lot of founders do, because when somebody tells you no, you think, oh, okay, you don't believe in me, or you don't trust me, or you don't think I can do this. So I quickly realized it's business. Really.
Yeah.
You have to be able to separate the no's from your own person and also the business. And also, it doesn't mean you're going to fail if you get a no. It just means that this person or this VC or this partner doesn't align with the vision or the thing that you're building. You just got to keep pitching, keep finding the right people, and eventually you'll find that person. And once you do, and that person also can be used as a network or a door for you to other networks to help you raise that. But it's hard. It is hard. Even now, when I get no's, sometimes it takes me a minute to realize, okay, it's not you. It's just, you're just not aligned with the same vision on this idea. So it's hard. So you just got to find a way. Each founder would have to will have to deal with that differently. So I think it's a personal journey, really. There's not a one size fits all, basically.
And I suppose the more you advance, you grow callous.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I appreciate in my earlier years in business, I used to be a network marketer. And what I appreciate almost most about that journey is being turned down by those who I cared most about, right? Family, friends. There's this stigma that you pyramid scheme, or, these things that go along with that.
Yeah.
But just that no, at the time I was probably 19. It hurt. It really did. It hurt at the time. And actually 18. My apologies, but it hurt. And you start to grow a little callous. The more you go on, through that process, and it puts hair on your chest, as some would say. Now I would love to know though. One of the challenges entrepreneurs face: building while raising, right? As we know, you have to build. It's like you're jumping out of the airplane and you're building as you're assembling your project as you're landing, right? But then you also have to raise. You need money for this thing because you realize, oh my goodness, I'm free falling and I don't even have money for a parachute.
I know.
I need this parachute before I hit the ground or I'm dead.
I know.
Right? So how do you allocate your time? How do you go about structuring your day or your mindset so that you're actually able to do both?
Yeah, you're right. You have to raise to keep scaling, and you have to scale to keep raising, and then you have to factor revenue into it. It could become very messy very quickly. So you have to find, and also that could be personal to every founder. You have to find that right balance really on how to structure your day, how to structure your raise, how to structure the company, and also depends on the stage of the company. The more advanced you are, the easier it is for you to structure things because you have already structure in place with other teammates and other people in the company that can help you. But in the early days, as a solo founder, or even if you have a team, it's still hard because you don't have anything in place yet to help you with that. So I'd say you got to be in the trenches, keep figuring out things, and eventually you'll find yourself at a position where now things start to make sense for you, and then you can kind of like prioritize better and then delegate better and then basically keep building. But one thing you cannot do is stop building. Even if it's hard for you to raise while you're building, you have to keep building, because if you have enough conviction in the idea, you have to operate very lean so that you can continue. This is something that I had to learn very early on, that we don't have unlimited resources. So I have to find ways to keep building, and I have to make sure all my decisions are more or less accurate, or at least to a point where it can advance the company. So every day I try to make the best decision possible, because I now take it as one day at a time. Whatever decision I make today is because I want to see the company tomorrow, and we can evolve, and tomorrow I make other decisions and so forth. So keep building, keep finding ways to operate very lean, and then eventually you'll get the resources that you need.
Right. They say if you try chasing two rabbits, you end up catching none.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid getting so distracted with one or the other?
It's hard. That's why it's important to build sprint milestones of things that you want to achieve and the timeline that you want to achieve that. And as you do that, you evaluate, you reassess, and then you keep adjusting your decision making, and then hopefully the decision that you make will help you and take you to the next level with the company.
Right. Now, I've had conversations, and it's funny. And I've witnessed this myself firsthand. But when are times you feel as if man, I've learned a lot more from my customers than perhaps even conversations with investors. And how meaningful is that in the building of what you have? Because obviously the investors are looking at certain metrics, you know, to indicate that this is a safe investment, a de-risk investment. But then the customers can say, but they determine whether or not it is a de-risk or a safe investment if they're participating or not. You know, the market is going to tell you whether you have something they value.
Yeah.
So through that learning curve, when are some times you may have heard an investor give an advice that sort of was, it contradicted what the market was telling you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that before. It also depends on whether or not the investor is well informed into your industry.
Yeah.
Because not every investor knows everything about every industry.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important to know what kind of investor you're talking to,
Yeah.
and you know, take their advice and analyze that yourself with your insights and your customer base. I've had advice where it didn't make sense for our industry from investors, and I'm pretty sure they believed that they were right, but the industry was telling us something else. For example, one time there was an investor that passed on us because we were building our app on Android, on iOS, and then on the web. And they were not very confident in Android. They wanted me to not build on that. They basically told me to quit and do something else. And they passed on. And at that time, that it was really hurtful because I really needed the money to really build and continue to scale.
Yeah.
But what I understood was they didn't have all the insight that I had about Android, because when we looked at Android, 70% of the OS mobile market is on Android, and when you look at, you know, industries or markets like in India and Nigeria, and then in Brazil, 90% of the population is using Android, and overall, like 3.9 billion people are using Android. But here's this investor telling me not to focus on this segment. So you're literally telling me missing out on half of the world. And when we look at freelancing as an industry, it's very prevalent in a lot of emerging economies. So
Yeah.
the industry, the market was telling us, we need to go after these people, we need to reach them, and most of them are using Android. So we had to go after that. And today, we are 105,000 plus downloads on Android alone, after somebody told me not to build on Android. And we believe we're gonna get to millions and millions eventually. So imagine that if we decided at that time not to build on Android, we would have probably missed out on half of our customer base right now.
You said 105 what thousand?
105,000 downloads on Android right now. So it's
Downloads
crazy, and
on
it's still growing.
Yeah.
And we believe that we'll get to millions eventually. But that's one of the cases where I had an advice.
So this investor literally told you to stop
yeah,
building.
yeah, do something
Not
else.
saying, he didn't just say, or she didn't just say build, include iOS,
Yeah.
but just rather
Yeah, they
abort the entire
they didn't
project.
believe in the freelance economy, and then they didn't believe in building an Android. And we still have iOS. We have iOS, we
Yeah.
have web,
Yeah.
but we realized early on that most of our customers were coming from Android, and we wanted to optimize for that so that we can capture more people.
Yeah.
But then here's somebody telling me basically to miss out on half of the
Oh,
world.
Lord.
You know, so
Lord.
we had to really understand, you know, what kind of advice is this? Is that person is
Yeah.
an industry expert? All these things you have to decide as a founder based on your insight and what your customers are telling
So
you.
you have to really know your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's get a little bit more into the psychology of things a bit again, because building is not as easy as maybe social media may make it look. You know,
Oh, it's hard.
Instagram, everything appears
It's
easy,
brutal.
right? I don't know if you've ever gotten close to a breaking point, or you seem like a very tough guy. I don't see anything breaking you, but
I feel like
I
every
want
day
you to
I'm right
share-
there.
Yeah. I want you to share, man. Like let's get a little, if we could get a little bit intimate with it in the sense of like just vulnerable and what happens when you're building. So many of us go through it, right?
I mean, every day, I feel like every day I'm right there, really. But I have to remind myself that, first of all, why we were building this,
Yeah.
and how far we've come as well. So I'm in that position where we've done too much to quit, and we've seen the potential, we've refused to quit. So I'm right there. So I just have to find a way to keep going.
What would you say the lowest moment was?
I can't really pinpoint any given time because it's been almost the same. You just got to wake up every day, find the energy, and keep going. But when you hear no, when the momentum slows down with user signups, or revenue is not there the way you want it yet, all these things, they can be like a breaking point for you. But you have to be steady in the vision to know that you got to keep building, because you need to reach that inflection point. And once you do, it's almost like you spend years, nothing is working, but you can't quit because you don't want to miss out on that momentum or that moment. So once you do, then everything will just make sense,
What would you say investors typically get wrong about founders?
Well, it could be the industry or the founders as well. So I would say mostly it's about the industries they would get it wrong. So some investors would not understand the industry that the founder is building in, and probably use that to also judge the founder in that case. But it probably boils down to the industry, So that's why it's important to find the right investors for the right industry, because if you find an investor that is not in your industry and that gives you bad advice, you might quit. Meanwhile, he was not the right investor for your industry, So, so not understanding that at the end of the day, the founders are the expert, right? They are the ones in the trenches, building, talking to customers, out there, making partnerships and all this. Sometimes it's good also to come into the conversation and listen, and because you don't know it all. The founders don't know it all. They want to learn. The investors should also be able to learn as well, because just because you're an investor doesn't mean you know it all. Yes, you have access to capital. Yes, you've done a lot of great things, but also you might not know about this industry, and it's totally okay. So you need to be able to ask the founder, hey, I don't know about this. Would you like, to educate me about this and help me understand how you, envision this to work? And then if you have enough conviction, then you can decide or not to invest. But coming in with your own assumption and prejudice and just disqualify everything, I don't think that's the right approach. So be humble enough, even if you have millions of dollars under management, to know that you don't know everything, and then let a founder who's been in the trenches let you know about a few things, and why the industry might work, and why your investment might double or triple, even though you didn't know about this industry.
And let's flip things a bit. What do founders get wrong about investors?
Thinking that investors know it all. It's the other way around as well, right? Maybe thinking just because the investors, they have access to millions of dollars, they have all this networks, they must know it all, which is not necessarily the case. We all trying to figure it out. We all out there learning and doing our very best. So being able to know that just because somebody has access to millions of dollars, they might also be in the trenches learning as well. So giving the investors the grace as well to ask them, hey, whether or not you know about this industry, or do you know somebody else that knows about it that can help me on all these things, and don't just assume that everybody knows everything just because of certain conditions.
Yeah, and have you ever been through any like a pitch event that was tense as far as the people there? You could tell they're just kind of, one of those characters that are just contrarian and just maybe a little abrasive. And if you were in sort of that, or maybe they were, or maybe you were in some sort of pitch, and perhaps questions and things asked, or it was just not even relevant to your stage or where you're at.
Yeah.
Like, just if you could share us a little bit of that.
Yeah, I encountered that during this process as well, and it's something that I had to learn to know how to deal with it. Something that I realized is, everybody wants to show that they know something, so they want to be able to talk about something, even if they don't have all the right insights. And in some cases, it was that situation where somebody was talking about something that was not accurate. Now, how do you handle that as a founder? Because you're in a really tough situation, because you need the resources to continue to build, but the person also is not willing to listen about the right insights, and then they have access to the money as well. So how do you navigate the situation? So, I guess it all comes down to your level of communication, really, is kind of like understand how they approach it and why they think that is, and then trying to find that middle ground to see if they're willing to learn from you, who's the founder, the expert who's been in the trenches, to teach them that. But sometimes some people just don't want to listen, and at this stage you just have to accept it and keep it moving, really. So,
how would you consider a good investor?
Yeah, a good investor is somebody that can bring value beyond just the capital. giving the money is awesome, but can you help us multiply that money? Can you help us invest that money in the right segments in the company
Okay.
and all that? Or an investor who's also an industry expert for what you're building. Yes, you come in with the money, but you also know about my industry. Then you can help me see things that I'm not seeing as a founder. And you can also connect me with other people also that can help me, or other resources, more partnerships. So I say if you can score an investor like that, you're a very lucky founder, and you are really on your way to build something great. So
Yeah, as we will call them, smart capital.
yeah.
That's smart money. Smart money doesn't just inject capital into the venture, but comes with so much more
Yeah.
resources, connections, insights, expertise. These are the things that are actually going to help fuel that company to the next stages. And it makes sense. This concept is beautiful, especially for those who are tuning in and are unfamiliar, because it's really a team game, right?
Yeah.
There's this invested interest. I remember years ago, I was probably around 22 at the time, 23, and I was me and some friends of mine, partners of mine. We went to a mentor's place, and this is a wealthy guy, worth well over 50 million. He's very successful, and he was sharing with us at the time that you want to get people who are successful like me invested into what you're doing, because you're going to get my attention. Yeah, and that's when now I think things become very beautiful in the sense that you're not just getting this money to go and fail, but actually now you're getting all the tools needed to actually win, right?
Yeah.
And that person actually cares that you're successful, obviously, because they get the
Yeah,
return.
again, I mean, you can raise millions of dollars and you still fail,
Exactly.
We've seen that with a lot of startups.
Yes.
You need to be able to allocate the money properly and
Yeah.
invest in the right segments at the right time, because momentum is very important in startups, right? Like you need to you need to move with the market at
Yeah.
the right time, and then the dynamic of your investment should also be appropriate to that. So just getting millions is not the end, of it all. You need to have the money and invest it at the right time. So that's why I say getting the investment is part of the process, but at the end of the day, it's your customers really,
Yeah.
because you're gonna build something for them. They're going to use it. They're going to be willing to pay you for it, and you're gonna keep scaling it, and then the company will become something, and then
Exactly.
and then everything.
And to further elaborate, and this is why it's important to look at the jockey as well, right? The horse is important,
Yeah.
but investors are also looking at the jockey, who's running the show. Because, say for example, with what you shared, you did raise the $1 million, and things crashed afterwards, right? A good team, a good founder will figure out a pivot. There, maybe there's so much we've learned from this process. You don't just burn through $1 million and not learn anything. I hope not.
Yeah.
Especially if the thing you were building, you were set out to build, is actually something needed, right? So then this team would then not probably quit and figure out a way, right? And that's where it's beautiful. But that smart capital helps, because then we're able to actually see what are all the different possibilities, who are all the different people we know, what are all the different systems that we know have worked. Let's exhaust all of our options, and
Yeah.
then we can probably see a light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
worth exploring.
And this is something that we also do at Feedcoyote, is we are very stubborn on the vision, but flexible with the approach.
Yeah.
So we know what we're building, we know where we want to get, but we want to explore different pathways to
Yeah.
get there. So that's why we are in version 6, because we are evolving, we are
Yeah.
learning with our users, and then we are changing it in the way that they want to use it and to provide value for them. And then eventually they will pay for the service, because that's solving a problem for them.
So as we wrap up here, I think it's important for us to know, what does success actually look like for you, especially beyond receiving the capital. And yeah.
Yeah, in my wildest dreams, I want to build the biggest platform that's targeting freelance collaboration, basically, because we're at that intersection where we're this platform that is changing the way that freelancing is done. So
Yeah.
we're building a more interconnected system in the freelance economy. So I want to be able to build this platform where any kind of freelancer eventually will come in, will network, will collaborate, and will have that opportunity to earn, and then find our productivity tools very useful to them so that they can scale their freelance business. So at scale, I want all the 1.5 billion freelancers to be on Feedcoyote, but we know that that's going to require a lot of work, and then we got to stay in the game and find ways to keep building and keep iterating and scaling as we move forward.
Now, if you were to start over again, like today, what would you do differently?
I would probably start by building my network better this time, because I think I was a bit naive in the early days when I launched this, to think you just have an idea and you're gonna launch it and then it's gonna go crazy. In some cases, some founders are lucky that their idea is awesome and then they just launch it and the world is responding to it. But in most cases, you need the right network around you, whether it's friends and family, whether it's the right investors, whether it's the right team to help you build with that. So being able to build from an efficiency perspective, that would be my priority starting over, because then I would waste less time, less resources on this thing that I want to build and move faster in a more efficient way.
Now, for the founders who are watching right now that may not have much in their pocket nor have raised any money, but they have a vision, what's the step one? What advice would you give that person?
First is understand how big is the problem. Is that a you problem, or is that a problem that some people are having, or is that a problem that's big enough that it can become a business? So do your market research, talk to people, interview potential customers, and then from there build a very lean product so that you can test very quickly, because you don't want to spend millions of dollars to figure out that this is something that nobody wants to use, right? So you want to be able to find a way to test very cheaply and very fast. And then once you do that, and then you understand the metrics that you set for yourself, and then once you meet those metrics and then you understand this is an idea that can scale, then now start investing into the product and start investing into marketing in other areas. But very first step really is understand how big the problem is.
And last but not least, what does building as a founder of Haitian descent truly mean to you?
I think everything, really. I'm from a country with poor economic background and lack of access, and then moving to the States and realize that all this was possible is something that I wanted to go after, because I wanted to take advantage of all the opportunities that were given to me, but also because I wanted to show other people that it's possible to do this. Because if you're in an environment that is helping you, an environment that is appropriate for you to do so, you can achieve these things. So I'm very happy that we're able to build a platform that now nearly 200,000 people are using around the world, and then we are continuing to scale. So I just want to be able to build this platform to a stage that other Haitian founders can now start launching their businesses. They can see that it's possible. They can see that they can go after their dreams as well.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Smart Capital Network exclusive. We're joined today by Dr. Stevens. This has been such an informative conversation, breath of fresh air. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Stevens here with us today, and I'm sure this is not our last conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to seeing the progress, and I look forward to having you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we all need love in the ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down. When the weekend comes, gonna go out. Never slow down, never slow down. Cause we all need love in the ghost town. Never slow down, never slow down.
When the weekend comes.